When you got your first mill, buy a farm. Don't ask me why. No questions answered on that. I'm Ty Lopez, and I'm on Help Bank. Why do most people never get rich? Never think that way because you're starting from scarcity, and most likely we live in a multiverse where there's many parallel universes. Just focus on yourself and what's holding you back. What's most likely holding you back, I call it the tyranny of your parents. Something you learned in your childhood that will hijack you. Figure out what it is and stop thinking that way. For example, you may think people who have money did something horrible to get it, and therefore you feel guilty when you make it. That's the tyranny of your ancestors. What 3 books should people read to be successful? To be happy, Freud's Civilization is Discontent. To be wealthy, I would actually read this book called Influence by Robert Cialdini. It's about the psychology of persuading people. And to get wealthy, Elon Musk had to persuade people that his Tesla was better than BMW's I-8. Third book that I would say everybody should read would be a biography. It's about a Norwegian guy named Thor Heyerdahl. It's called Kon-Tiki. There's also a movie if you don't like to read. He wanted to prove that humans could go from South America, basically almost to Australia, in a small boat, and everybody laughed at him, so he just built the boat and went all the way across. And what it teaches you, courage. You're never gonna make money if you don't have courage. How did Ty Lopez get rich? I started by doing lead generation with Google Ads for a financial services business. I started my own company and I figured out how to generate leads on Google AdWords. It used to be 20 cents a click. Now it's 20 bucks. So once you know marketing, wealth is somewhat inevitable. Or what's the most underrated skill in business? Knowing how to manage your time. Hey Siri, set a timer for 18 minutes. These are called Pomodoro sprints or Pomodoro method. So then I'll focus for 18 minutes on one thing, like answering all my emails. And then when it's done, I'll go, hey Siri, set a timer for 5 minutes. Then I take a 5-minute break, just do whatever, and I work in sprints. So the most underrated skill in business is how to set up your daily routine. What's my definition of wealth? 30 million net worth or higher. You could say 10 million if you're talking about financial wealth. When I think wealth, I think money. When I think about the good life, I think about more than money. Aristotle, Socrates, they used to call it eudaimonia. You're financially independent when you can make between 100 grand and $1 million in the Western world. You're rich when you can make 1 million to 10 million or your net worth is there, and you're wealthy above that. What do most successful people have in common? You gotta quantify. We talking about successful like billionaires? Billionaires are ruthless and high IQ at the same time. Not all billionaires are successful in the game of life. Everybody ends up 6 feet under at the end. I think successful people who get the good life, who get health, wealth, love, happiness, what I think they have in common, balance. They know when to stop, you know? It's like dudes that lift weights and then their body starts to look good, so then they got to pump steroids till they look like a freak. They don't know when to stop. What's my daily routine? Wake up within 1 hour of the sun coming up. That's what our ancestors did, and there's a lot of science on that. I have homes in different time zones, so I can't always pull it off. But if you're asking me for the ideal routine, do a little fasted work. We used to do this on a farm. You'd wake up, have to feed all your animals before you ate breakfast. Don't eat breakfast for 1 to 3 hours. Then eat, take a nap, and lift weights if you're a dude. And women too. You're your strongest about 5 hours after you wake up. I like to make money early. Go start making money. You cannot do 16 hours of high intensity money making work. It's a myth. There's a great book called Deep Work by Cal Newport, a scientist. You can get in 3 crazy focused creative hours and then you can work longer. So I do the mornings like focused as much as I can. And I keep working the afternoon, but slowly but surely, I'm a little less focused. Then nighttime, social life, friends, family, romance. How important is owning equity to get rich? To be wealthy, you need to have equity. 1 to 10 million, you can build it with a service business. But if you want to be wealthy, more than 10 million, you're gonna have to own shares of something, preferably a tech company. Those of you really greedy, AI tech, you need to be in that. What's the best marketing strategy you've ever seen? Well, practically now, when you run ads, focus on CTR, click-through rate. That's the #1 predictor of a profitable marketing campaign. You got to know how to make good hooks. Good opening hooks. The average human has under 6-second attention span. Without a hook now, especially with the algo, you won't win. What's the key to a good personal brand? You know, some people would say authenticity, which there's truth to it. What's one crazy thing that you truly believe that 80% of the world will think is crazy? Talk about that once in a while. What's my biggest business regret? A lot of people say do what you love. I have a different take on that. What are you curious about? Like me, I'm curious about psychology. If I had a trillion wired to me today, and they're like, you cannot work anymore. You have $1 trillion. I'd still talk about psychology. Charlie Munger said, you want to know what's your biggest mistakes? Invert your greatest wins. Stuff I'm curious about, my biggest wins. Stuff I'm not curious about, but I think is trendy, that never works out. Who is the most impressive entrepreneur you have ever met? His name is Tillman Fertitta. He's one of the wealthiest guys. I think he's the wealthiest man in Texas. 10 billion net worth. I once had him on my podcast. I said, Tillman, what's some practical advice for the entrepreneurs that follow me? He said, always keep 600 million in cash. I was like, Tillman, this is very unrelatable advice. But what's impressive about this guy, he owns basically the largest company in America with no shareholders. He has complete freedom. Elon Musk has 1 million shareholders of Tesla that are always mad if the stock goes. So what I like about Tillman is he built wealth, but he has, in Spanish, we call it tranquilo. His life is chill because they don't have anybody get mad at him. He owns the Houston Rockets basketball team. You go to his office. He put it at the top of a Four Seasons hotel, and you have to walk through a Bugatti dealership. You know how they're like, what color is your Bugatti? Tillman's like, bitch, what color is your dealership? How do you handle hate online? If you don't have haters, you ain't popping. I think Drake said that a long time ago. So I actually gauge my hate when it's too low. I know I'm doing something wrong when it's too high. Optimal threshold's about 10 to 20%. Now remember, 10 to 20% of haters will feel like 50% because haters talk more than people who love you. This is called the negativity bias in humans. And so I just handle hate by using it as a gauge of my virality. What motivates you to keep making money? I mean, I think genetically some people just are money makers. I have a mentor, his name's Rorion Gracie. His father invented Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and he invented the UFC. He sold it to Dana White. And he still does Jiu-Jitsu and he's in his 70s. So what motivates him to do Jiu-Jitsu? It's in his blood. Me making money is gonna be in my blood. How important is purpose in business? Purpose is a broad word, like I said, curious. What would you talk about on a Saturday night when money didn't matter and you weren't working with your friends? Try to make money there. If all you talk about is sports, try to make money in sports. If all you talk about is women, try to make money and launch a dating course. Try to launch the next Tinder. There's a new dating app out of Sweden for double dates. It's killing it. There's always some new thing on love. There's always some new thing on sports. The guy who started Fanatics that prints jerseys. In fact, the guy who built this house, he made his money providing clothing to big sports. He makes like all the jackets for the Lakers and Manchester United and all that stuff. So what would you do on a Saturday night? What would you think about and talk about? Figure out how to make money in that, and you can make money. This is the one time in history where anything you like, you can make money in. And once you get rich, how should you spend your money? When you got your first mill, buy a farm. Don't ask me why. No questions answered on that. Just trust me on it. You'll thank me later. How much money is enough? For most humans, 10 million. I would never hate on a man who says, Ty, I'm gonna make 200 G's and move to Thailand or Brazil. I'd be like, my friend, you may have outsmarted some of the Forbes list guys I know. If you can figure out how to make 200 G's, you move down to Sao Paulo, Brazil, your money goes I did an Uber once. It was 85 cents. If you make 20 G's a month, you actually can't spend the money. You get a badass penthouse is like $3,000. A chef, $400 a month. How much money is enough? It depends which country you want to live in and what city. If you want to live in Beverly Hills, never will you have enough. You just keep you on the hedonic treadmill till you die.